What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Hunter Ballew here. He's a founder of Revolt and roofing.com. He's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. Make it count. Make sure to go check that out. And he is doing a bunch of phenomenal things. Besides that, he's also a husband and a father of two younger kids. So he's right there in that area with me, with my one younger kid. But he's doing some phenomenal things. We actually had to reschedule the podcast because he was going to go hang out with this guy, John Maxwell. I don't know if you heard of him. He's kind of like the father of leadership. No, but it's really cool, and I'm excited to have you on here, Hunter. But tell us a little bit more about yourself before we dive into the podcast episode.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on, Philip. It's always a joy to hop on and talk shop, business, and life. I didn't know you were the same age as me before we got on, so that's pretty cool that we're right there together and both trying to make an impact. But for me, man, 32 years old. I'm from this little bitty town, Travelers Rest, South Carolina. I always tell people I was born, raised, and stayed. I really love it. I travel all over the place, and people always ask me, what's my favorite place? Where would I want to move? And I really love it here. You got the mountains, you got the lakes, you got the beach a couple hours away. There's Atlanta and Charlotte for big cities. Greenville's a pretty big city, so I really love it here. I grew up in TR, went to Travelers Rest High School, and actually met my wife, who also went to Travelers Rest High School. She was a year behind me after we got out of high school at the local Spinks gas station here in Travelers Rest. So I always tell that it's kind of funny that I met my wife at the gas station, but it's the truth. I was at pump 4, she was at pump 13. And so we've been together now 12 years. She was 19 and I was 20 years old. We have a little boy that's almost 5 years old. He'll be 5 in December of this year. And then a little girl that is about a week from being a year old. So pretty excited about that. She's getting big, crawling all over the place, so close to walking for like a month and a half now. We thought she was going to do it any day, but she's so stubborn. So that's kind of the personal side, man. I graduated from that high school in 2009. I got out of high school, went into the Marine Corps. Then I went to the fire department full-time for 5 years and just kind of try to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Both of my parents were addicts when I was younger. It kind of split my family apart. And so I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do for me, what my legacy was going to be. Funny enough, I got the shirt on, what my legacy was going to be. And I knew pretty quick, like within the first couple of years at the fire department and the Marines, like, this ain't going to cut it. Like, I want to do some big things. I want to impact people. And I feel like the more money you have, you can impact more people. Not that you can't impact people without money. You can. But I do think at scale, you can help more people with money. So I wanted to step away from the fire department and just chase kind of that entrepreneurial dream. And so I did that, man. And I started a company called Cornerstone Construction. For anyone watching the upstate of South Carolina, they probably have seen the yellow trucks driving around everywhere. I'd say we're probably one of the bigger companies in the upstate. And from there, man, we just kind of created this ecosystem in the roofing space in the industry. It started with Cornerstone, and then we started a conference called Roofcon. Then I sold my company Cornerstone, and I acquired a company called roofing.com. Then I reacquired Cornerstone Construction. And in the process of all that, we started Revolt because we wanted to make an impact on people outside of the roofing industry as well, just business owners in general. And so we started a company called Revolt. We throw about a dozen events a year. I think our first event ever was like August 8th or August 9th of 2019. So just 4 years ago. And we're right there at 60 events. We throw a good bit of events. We have a good time doing that. I've always loved bringing people together since I was really young. And so that's a way for me to do that, is through retreats, through conferences and things like that. So that's kind of where I'm at now. We do have an app as well that's closing in on 100,000 users called RepCard. That sales reps and entrepreneurs use, but that's kind of the core of what I do and who I am.
Man, yeah, you're doing a lot of things, which is really cool and really exciting. I want to go back to that personal thing real quick, because you didn't mention that for those that are not from South Carolina. Spinks, at least to my understanding, is a South Carolina-based gas station as well. Yep. I know it's starting to spread out and everything. So it's kind of funny. You're keeping everything TR and South Carolina within your whole personal life and everything, which it's really funny there also. And like you, man, I'm from the Houston area, unlike you, but I love it up here because, yeah, you're close to the mountains, you're close to the beach, or pretty close. I was a little bit closer being in the Houston area, but beach is about the same. brown water, brown sand kind of thing. But I love the mountains so much more because I'm pretty pale. So I kind of turn into a lobster and back to pale again. So it's better for me just to be in the mountains and everything. It's just a beautiful area for sure. But man, I really want to dive into the fact that you talked about you're doing all these events and everything. And I feel like so many speakers, first of all, they struggle with speaking, but I want to take a little bit different route here really quick and just talk about, like, besides, like, let's just start with, why did you decide to start doing events?
Yeah. Yeah. So I really just kind of pieced this together in like the last year and a half, and kind of had this realization. When I was young, I'd bring people together. I just always was the guy that would get my group of friends and say, "Hey, this Saturday, let's go to the park and let's play ball. Let's have a party." When I got into high school, it was inviting half of the class and having 100 people up in the mountains doing a bonfire. I just always loved bringing people together and kind of building that community. And then I left high school, went to the Marine Corps, camaraderie. I left the Marine Corps, went to the fire department, camaraderie. And when I left that and started a business, well, at first the business, we didn't have dozens and dozens of employees. It was me and a couple other people. So there wasn't this big group, and I missed it. So that's when we started Revolt and we started Roofcon, was to have another place where we could bring people together. Now, with Roofcon, that's an annual event. This year in November will be our 5th year doing that. It went from that first year we had like 40 people there, to the next year 900, to the next year 2100, to the next year, or no, 2200, and then this past year we had 3400 attendees and 250 vendors. So that's great, and it's been a lot of fun seeing the growth. But in between the rest of the year, like I want to hang out with people. I want to spend time. I want to grow. I want to level up. I want to surround myself with other entrepreneurs. And so that's when we do those events through Revolt. And we just haven't wanted to stop. Like I'm always thinking of new events. We just announced one today. I don't know if you saw my Facebook post. Publicly, this has kind of been out there for my Revolt members that are part of our mastermind. But publicly, I just announced today a new wilderness retreat we're doing called Inferno, and I'm super excited about that. But always trying to get creative, come up with new events. We had our couples retreat 2 months ago. Last month we did our father-son retreat. So yeah, I just love bringing people together and leveling up and surrounding myself with good people.
Man, and that's pretty cool that you're doing all these things. And it's a lot of fun bringing people together. I found that I like to do that as well. I used to be this shy, introverted kid, didn't want anything to do with anybody, but then I started realizing I was getting passed over and I wanted to change something. And so that's why I got into speaking. So you doing all these events, I mean, it's really cool. And I want you to break down real quick Roofcon, because some people probably have heard of that, and it's obviously becoming a bigger event. Once you get over 1,000, I would definitely say it's a bigger event for sure. But you said the first year was 40 people. Bring us back there. Like, how did you feel like going in and starting this thing called Roofcon, and then I'll just say only having 40 people? I still think it's great for a first event, but you're a big dreamer. So I'm guessing you're probably like, man, we only had 40 people. But
Yeah.
bring us back to Hunter 5 years ago when he had 40 people at Roofcon.
Yeah, no, that's really spot on, man. So the first event was, again, I don't remember if it was August 8th or 9th, but it was one of those days for sure, 2019. So just over 4 years ago, we had our first event. That was in Greenville, down on Rutherford Road at a little event center. And we had about 40 people at that event too. And I left that event, and one of the speakers that I brought in was from the roofing industry. And he's like, dude, like, we need to do this. That event was for Revolt. And it was about growing your business, but also about the personal side. And our core values are integrity, leadership, legacy. That's what we preach. And so one of the guys that was from the roofing industry that had spoke, he's like, dude, we need this for the roofing industry. Like, every conference out there, and there's only a couple of conferences at that time, but they were all about money, 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 money. And to be honest, a lot of them, most of them that were already created were about, hey, get away from your family, come to Vegas, let's do drugs and go out to the strip clubs and do the things that roofers do. Roofers do, their crowd, not all roofers. And so I was like, you know what, let's try it. Let's throw it together. This was, again, August of 2019. And I decided for sure to do it in September of 2019. And then about 60 days later, we were having our first event. It was November 8th and 9th of 2019. So almost 4 years ago this year. And so we threw it together. I had some pretty good speakers from the roofing industry. I thought for sure we were going to have 100 people there. My speakers were kind of promoting it. They thought we were going to have 250 there. Got there was 40, man, and I was bummed. Like I was super bummed because I am really competitive. I want to be the best. I want to provide the most value, and I felt really let down, and I felt like I let the speakers down as well. A lot of these guys were big names in the industry, doing a lot more revenue than I was at that time. I was still kind of small potatoes. We only had done like 5 million that year in revenue. Some of these guys were in the multiple 8 figures. And so I remember going around and like apologizing basically to these speakers. We were in a little crappy hotel. This is a kind of funny backstory here, and maybe motivation for anyone listening that wants to do an event, and not to be too hard on yourself. But I wanted to do this event. I talked to a dude. I'm like, hey, where should we do it? We're looking at Nashville. He's like, oh man, the Opryland. You know what the Opryland is? Have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty nice event center up there. And so he's like, do it at the Opryland. I'm all right, awesome. Let's do it at the Opryland. So I tell one of my people on my team, I'm not going to say their names, so I don't want to embarrass them. So they call in, they book it. I get up there, I roll up to the hotel. I'm the first one there, of course, on November 7th, 2019. And I walk in, I'm looking around, I'm like, this place is not nice. Like hairball floating in the hot tub, floor looks like dog puke on it. I'm like, what the heck is good? This is not nice. So I called the dude that said it was really nice. He's like, yeah, man, I don't know what you're talking about. And he pulls up and he's like, bro, you booked the Opryland Inn, not the Opryland. So we booked the wrong hotel and it wasn't super nice, but we pushed through it. And I tell you what, one of the guys, they grabbed me on the shoulder when I was apologizing for the low turnout. We had 10 vendors there and 40 attendees. So 10 people, companies came and set up their booths and promoted it and all the things. We had 40 people. And one of the guys grabbed me around the shoulders and he said, listen, all we need to do is change one life. That's all that matters. If we do that, then it's a success. Because I left there kind of thinking, okay, probably not going to do this again, if I'm being honest. And that next week, man, if there was 40 people there, like 39 of them were on Facebook talking about how it's the best event they've ever been to. And I still, to this day, it's crazy because there's only 40 people there, but it's like every 3 or 4 months, I'll reconnect. I just did it this past weekend. We had a retreat in Gatlinburg. A dude came up to me. He was like, hey, man, I know you don't remember me, but I was at the first Roofcon, best event I ever been to. And so I was like, all right, well, maybe it's worth doing. If we can get a couple hundred people there this next year, let's just do it. Let's commit to it. So we started looking at the NRG Center in Houston. And what happened in 2020? COVID hit.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my gosh, dude, now we can't do an event. What are we going to do? Are people going to show up? And I was very like, I don't care. Let's just do it anyways. And so we did, man. We did it in Houston, NRG Center, October of 2020. We had 900 people show up and 50 vendors. So we had more vendors the second year than we did attendees the first year. So that was pretty cool to see that growth. But not easy. Events are not easy. Most people don't make money on events. You got to have some kind of back end offer to make the money. But the impact that can be made is super fulfilling, to say the least. Like super, super fulfilling. The messages you get year round of people and their growth, not just as like a sales guy coming in and saying, hey, I only did 800,000 last year and this year I did 1.2 million, but I saved my marriage. I lost weight. I was suicidal and now I'm not. Like those messages are man, they're everything.
Man, and that's incredible there. And that's what I love about events too. My first event only had 7 people, which was pretty much all the speakers and then a couple of people. But yeah, it was pretty crazy to see. Actually, I think it was 10. I keep saying 7, but I think it was actually 10. So 7 of them were speakers and then like 3 people in the crowd. So yeah, you did a lot better than me. And it is something, it's definitely difficult, man, like, to do that event. And so many people don't think about that. And actually, I want you to talk about this real quick because it's not talked about a lot. And I know this is a little off subject, but the fact that you said usually events, you don't make money. I think a lot of people see, and it's probably more like the 10X events. You see like these bigger, fancier events where you're spending $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 on a ticket. And you're like, oh, these guys got to be making hand over fist on this. And really, they're still not making money on the event because of the speakers they pay. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's rare that, at least from my conversations, that I've had a lot of conversations with people that run events, because obviously I'm in that circle. And usually they're not making money on the event unless they have a back end offer that they're selling. So like for us, our way to make money is to say, hey, we got 3,000 people that showed up to our event, but of those 3,000, they're not all buying units. Like they're not all people that we have something to sell to, because we work with entrepreneurs, we work with business owners. So if the average guy, and this is just, math, if the average business owner brings 9 people with them, then that means we only have 300 business owners at the event. It's really more than that. Our average is probably like 4 per team. But you just do the math on that. It's like, okay, if we can close 10 of those at whatever your ticket price is. So like for us, Revolt is $30,000 a year. So last year we closed, I think it was 18, and we didn't even really pitch it. Like I just mentioned it from stage. I'm like, hey, if you have interest in joining it, because we kind of from the very beginning, that was another thing that differentiated us, is we focused on personal development, not just business. We focused on integrity, leadership, legacy, but we also promised that it wouldn't be a pitch fest, because every other event is just pitch, 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 pitch. So we have never wanted it to be a pitch fest. But at the same time, it's like, hey, we can't just keep losing money on these events. There are some people I know that make money on events, but usually those are the guys that are doing, that they've been in business for 20 years and their brand is so big that they don't have to spend a ton of money marketing the event. They just fill it up because of the reputation. For us, last year, dude, we lost over $1 million on our event. Even though we had that massive growth, 3,400 people, 250 vendors showed up, but we planned the event for 5,000 because we thought we were going to have it just based off our trajectory and the people talking. And then we had a hurricane hit the week before, which is not good when I'm in the roofing industry, because all the guys were going to wear the hurricane. And then it was like 2 weeks before, and then we had another hurricane hit during the event. So it just slaughtered our ticket sales, man. I mean, I spent $750,000 just on AV, just the stage setup, the screens, the audio, all that stuff. And it was beautiful. I mean, it looked like a full-blown Taylor Swift concert in there.
Yeah.
It was awesome, but it cost me a lot of money. Yeah, we've learned to adjust and make sure we account for things like hurricanes moving forward.
Yeah, that's definitely tough. I would think you'd want to make sure not to plan around that time of year then, especially being literally a roofing company. Yeah.
You wouldn't think there's a hurricane in November. It's just bad luck.
Yeah, man. Oof. That's rough. But yeah, that's the side that most people don't see when it comes to these events. They just see, oh, yeah, this big ticket price, or, oh, yeah, you've got these vendor packages, which definitely helps when you have the sponsors and the vendor packages to help make up for some of that money. But it doesn't do everything for you. And so let's shift a little bit here. So I know you've been speaking on a lot of stages, and not just the ones that you've created. Obviously, that's a great way to be able to go speak. And I suggest that to people as they're trying to get those reps in. So I would love for you to kind of give us some insight to you, because obviously you created a lot of events, and I'm not exactly sure when you started getting invited to other stages, but I'm going to guess that it was like after you started doing some of your own events. But tell us that journey of how you went from, or how it started where you got on the stages.
Yeah. So there was a few before I started my own events, mostly smaller kind of gigs, but definitely the bigger ones with like thousands of people, hundreds of people came after I started doing my own events. One thing about starting your own events is all the relationships you can create through those events. So even like our retreats, our smaller retreats with just our members, we have, 80 members come out to a retreat, and I'll bring in guest speakers because my members don't want to hear me just talk and talk and talk. I like to bring in guest speakers that are, experts in their space. They might be an expert in marketing or operations or sales or real estate investing or whatever it is. And so I'll bring in other people. Well, that's a great opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to give you access to my stage and my audience for you to talk and to get another rep. And then in turn, what do? They turn around, and when they have an event or they have a friend that has an event and they're looking for somebody, they refer me. So that's been really cool to see the growth in that. Last year I probably did, 25 or 30 stages last year, which was a lot, to be traveling that much, like 2-3 times a month. It was just nonstop, especially during the summer. And this year I kind of committed to staying home more. I've done only a couple. You mentioned it before we started the show, but yeah, going to Africa next week to speak at a pretty big conference. I'm excited about that. I did that one just because I've never spoke in Africa, so I figured that'd be pretty cool. But outside of that, man, just kind of taking it easy, focusing on the business. I think there's a real thing around, you know, pouring into others, but not refilling your cup enough or refilling the cup of your people enough inside of your team. And in 2022, I spent so much time just going out, pouring into others and speaking at events and running events. And I don't feel like I did enough of pouring back into me and having mentors pouring into me and me pouring into my team. And so this year was kind of reevaluating that and making sure that I did a good job of spreading the love.
Man, and you beat me to it. I was just going to ask you how did you create that harmony there? Because I just think about some of the events that I go out and speak at, or going to these business conferences and everything, and that does create some stress within my marriage because okay, I'm going out and doing this, and we've got a daughter under 2, and so now that's just a lot on my wife to take care of, plus going to work full time. So how are you creating that harmony? First of all, within marriage, and then we'll go into the business side.
Yes, actually, one of my favorite topics to talk about, man. In my book, you mentioned that Make It Count. There's a section in there. It's called work-life beliefs. Everyone talks about work-life theory, and my whole concept is work-life belief. What that means is you got this seesaw, and the pivot point is based off of your belief in your why and what you do, and your wife's belief in what you do. First, it starts with you, the individual. Like, how much do you believe in what you do? Because if I really believe in going out and speaking and changing lives, and I'm doing it for that purpose and not just to make extra money, then I can be willing to sacrifice a little bit of time at home. But my wife has to believe that too. Because if she sees me just doing it for money, at some point, you don't need any more money. You know, for us, like, and not to say that in an arrogant way, but like, you don't have to keep stacking up money, right? Like, it has to be about the impact. And so I just challenge people all the time to get real clear on why you're doing what you're doing. I know that sounds cliche. That's like the thing to say nowadays with all these motivational videos, but it's true. Like, get very, very, very defined on what your life mission is. For me, we have an exercise called Define, where we help people define their life mission statement. All these businesses out there, these entrepreneurs, they have mission statements for their business, but they don't have them for their personal life. For me, it is, I will develop millions of leaders that go on to impact billions of lives. I believe that with all of my heart and all my soul. And I know that I have to sacrifice some time with my son, with my daughter, with my wife, with people at work. I have to do these trips to Africa. I have to go to Knoxville. I have to go to Portland. I have to do the things. But my wife believes it too. And if she didn't, she wouldn't be as supportive. She wouldn't be taking care of the kids, knowing that I got to be gone, 2 weeks out of the month. But she does get it, and she does support it. And she does. The cool thing for us, man, is like, she gets to see all the text. She gets to see the messages. She gets to see the mail I get, where I'll get a handwritten letter from someone that's been impacted by our retreat. She sees it. She sees the change. She comes to the couples retreat and hears the guys that have come through our retreats talking about their life being changed. She sees the wives of those men talk about how they're a better father, how they quit drinking, how they lost weight, all the things. So it's not just me mouthing off talking about it. She gets to see the result.
And so how is that? Obviously now you're at this point, you've created this impact. It's I can see the naysayer saying, well, of course, Hunter, it's easy. Your wife can see all that. But what about when you first started, when it wasn't necessarily there? How did those conversations look to get her to believe in you and believe in the goal where y'all were trying to go, or I guess you more specifically were trying to go with it all?
Yeah, man. I think there's a level of luck involved that I found such a supportive, awesome wife. I mean, I tell people all the time, I give her a hard time, but I tell everybody else, I really lucked up. Like, she's as supportive as she could be. She's the best mom, the best wife I could ever ask for. And I think there's a level of luck to it, but also just from the very beginning, being super clear on what we wanted out of life. Like, our daughter is adopted. And from the first year of us dating, I made it very clear. I had a cousin adopt when I was like 13 years old. I remember it and just thinking how impactful that was. And I just always wanted to adopt. So as soon as me and Mag started dating and we were real serious, it was like, hey, we want to adopt. I want to adopt. I want to make sure you're cool with that. When it was getting into business, I'm not going to lie to you, and I tell people this often. My mission when I got into business was to prove people wrong, all the people that said I couldn't do it, at the fire department, from my childhood, from the Marines, all the people, all the naysayers. But it was to make $1 million. I wanted to be a millionaire by 30. I just kept saying it over and over and over and over. But as we grew in the business and we started to bring people onto the business, that mission changed real quick. It was to impact people. It was to grow leaders within our organization instead of just making that money. I always tell people it was a flip from the focus was on income to the focus was on impact. And I mean that again, it's not to be cliche. It's just true. Like when we started seeing our sales reps who were making $14 an hour laying brick or doing pest control or doing some hard labor come in and be able to make $100,000 with us and go buy their dream property, buy their dream car or take their wife on a vacation, a honeymoon they never had. Like that stuff that was super fulfilling. It was more than just about the money for us. And so as that changed, I think that for her, man, it was an easy buy-in.
Man, that's awesome. So make sure you go to Spinks to find you the perfect wife.
One in Traveler's Rest, not Marietta.
Yeah, right. We got to make that distinction there. Just got to go a little bit further. Or no, which one's? I forget which one's first. Traveler's Rest is first.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I don't go up there too often, clearly, but yeah, man, that's really cool. And I think there, just that clear communication, being clear on your goals, being consistent is such a huge thing. And I know I found for me, the more consistent and the more I stand firm on my belief in the things that I want to go after, the better it has been in the relationship with me and my wife as well. Because if you're just kind of like one day you're, I'm going to do this, and the next day it's this, and you just keep changing. Eventually your wife's gonna be like, okay, dude, I'm not listening to you anymore. Clearly you have no clue. So I'm not following somebody that has no clue. So you have to really show them.
I'll add one thing to that, man. Like, how can you get your spouse involved? Like I mentioned that she gets to see the stuff, but as the business has grown, she's gotten more involved. In 2020, we started our nonprofit, which is now called the Revolt Foundation. And getting her involved with that to help lead those and lead the events and bring the kids together and, contact homes and things like that. That was cool. We had a conversation. I'd spoken at an event in January of 2020. We were on our way back from that. It was in Indianapolis. And I just said, babe, like, you're super supportive and I appreciate you for that. But I want you to have your own thing. Like, I want you to be passionate about something else. And so the Revolt Foundation is what that became, and her really just taking a hold of that and helping lead that because it's something I wanted to do, and we kind of had a vision for it, but her just taking it by the horns and owning it. So that, to me, it sounds corny, but for me, that was attractive, because I wanted to see her just do her own thing and not just be supportive of me.
Yeah, man, I would say it's very attractive as well. I mean, it's nice as a man to have a woman kind of following you, being supportive of you and everything, but it's also very attractive to seeing them go out and do something and where you can go support them back. And I think that doesn't happen too often. Either way, it seems to not happen too often. But let's go ahead and make a shift onto the business side now. So we kind of mentioned this, and you brought it up a little bit about how you went from focused on the income of your own income, becoming this millionaire, making all this money. And I agree with you, at a certain point, money really doesn't matter anymore. And the more impact that you can create, changing people's lives, really will it fulfills you so much more. And so you started building up this team and everything. Tell us about that, how that communication started as you started to develop and build up this team.
Yeah, so with Cornerstone, it was early 2019, January of 2019. We kind of, to be honest, halfway taking Cornerstone seriously. I was still doing some marketing and some other things that I was doing when I left the fire department, just to get by and make money. And early 2019, January 2019, I created this program called Six Figure Blueprint. A lot of people know about it now. I've been talking about it for years at our events and things like that, and just encouraging people to build out their own framework of Six Figure Blueprint. It's really just a course that I created for our sales reps to be able to come in with zero experience in the roofing industry and make six figures. And so everything from introduction on our core values, our mission statement, why we're different, why you should be proud to work with us, what we do in the community. The next section of basics of roofing. How do you measure a roof? How do you set up a ladder safely? Just all the things, door to door, sales, financing, operations, installing a roof, just trying to teach them everything they need to know to come in and make six figures. That was a big change in our business, because for me to be able to go out and recruit sales reps and grow the business, I had to feel confident that I had all the tools, all the training, all the technology for them to be successful. It's something I've said probably thousands of times at this point at our events and on podcasts like this. That became kind of our little slogan that we told people when they were interested in joining our organization is, we're going to give you all the tools, all the training, all the technology to make six figures. But at the end of the day, you have to bring the work ethic. We'll provide you all the tools, all the training, all the technology to make six figures, but you have to provide the work ethic. We can't do that for you. Like, you can see these other guys that have come to the company, they've made good money, but you got to show up every single day and put in the work. If you'll work 40 hours a week, you can't not make really good money in this industry when you're given all the stuff we're going to give you and you have the brand we have and the support and the love of the people on our team. But there's just a lot of people that don't show up. They don't put in the work. But that changed everything for us because we said, hey, we know that we're giving them everything we got. Now it's just up to them.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's so sad. I was talking with some friends, and we were like, "Oh yeah, they show up." I was like, it's so sad that the standard has gotten so low that if you just show up, you're better than most people. And a lot of times that's how you make money, like good money, just showing up, being consistent, being there over time. People will get to know you, they'll like you, they'll trust you, and they know you're going to stick around. So just showing up is probably 70% of the battle, which is really cool. And it's really cool that y'all have created that six-figure blueprint. I have heard about that and everything, which is a really cool thing that you've given all that training. I think it's such a smart thing, creating those systems and processes for everybody, the training, so that they can know exactly what to do. As long as they run that play, they will make that six figures. And so now, like with you, so obviously you've been you weren't really in the business, then you started being in the business, and I would say you're probably, are you like out of the business completely now? Like where are you at when it comes to like the business, the day to day and everything?
Yeah, so there's kind of five main businesses. There's some other ones that I'm just like invested in, and I'm
Yeah.
not an operator at all. With the five main businesses, we do have operators in place for each of them. So, for Cornerstone Construction, it's Walker. For Repcard, it's Brad. For Revolt, it's Michael. For Roofcon, it's Diego. And for Roofing.com, it's Marcus. Like, they lead the team. They have a team. They lead that team. They communicate with that team. And for me, for the most part, on three of the businesses, I get weekly reports from those presidents. And then from two of the teams, I get monthly reports. And those are the two most established, been around a long time. I really don't have to worry about them. They're super well oiled. The other ones I'm a little more active with just because they're newer companies. They've only been around 2-3 years. So that's kind of where I'm at. And it's always a balance of like, how do I use my time best? Because I want to live in my strengths. I want to do what I'm good at. Like, I'm not a finance guy. I'm not a operations guy. I'm really good at vision, team building, culture, things like that, strategy. I enjoy speaking. I enjoy doing the podcast. What can I do that's going to help benefit the team while I'm also playing to my strengths? And then we just brought on a new COO, so that's super exciting. It's actually going to be heading up all the companies, working with those presidents individually. So now my job moves from working with each of those guys individually to just working with Tim, who's kind of the right hand helping me grow these things.
Man, that's awesome. And so I was literally about to go into that question. So how does that communication look? And so tell us now the communication as it is and how it's gonna be with this COO.
Yeah. So right now, we basically do weekly scorecards is what they give me. It's just called a scorecard. So like, just as an example, Revolt, the scorecard looks like, okay, what's cash on hand? What's debt? We have 30-day liability column on the right side. How many members have signed up in the last week? How many spots have we sold to our Revoltex retreat, which is our foundational retreat? And then just mainly those little stats. Roofcon is how many tickets have we sold? How many vendor spots have we sold in the last 7 days? How much cash on hand do we have? Things like that. And then when we get to the end of the month for like Revolt and Roofing.com, it's a KPI tracker where they're updating and they have targets that they have to hit. They're either on target, on goal, or they're on minimum, or they're not at all. And it'll be red, orange, or green. And if they get red too many times, then they get a deduction in salary and bonuses. And then if they get it way too many times, then obviously we have to start looking at moving people around. So That's never a fun conversation. We'd rather just hold each other accountable and hit those goals and work together as a team. But those KPI trackers just help us keep the train on the tracks, moving towards the goal. Like for Roof, where I was going with that is roofing.com and Revolt. Like we have a lot of monthly recurring revenue because of subscriptions, people inside of our partner program with roofing.com, people inside of our membership with Revolt, is that's people paying a monthly fee. And so we have goals every month of, hey, we want to increase by X amount of dollars in monthly recurring revenue. And so they're either hitting it or they're not hitting it. And we'll label it, like I said, red, orange, or green. And that way we know where we're trending.
And it's really cool that you're doing that. And I want to acknowledge there that you are not getting into the weeds. And too many, I would say, business owners and then people that are that high level leadership, they want to get so much into the weeds rather than knowing the high level and then figure out, okay, what's going on with this KPI? Why are we not hitting that? Why is this below par? And that's when you go in and ask the question. But hey, if everything's on par, then it's cool. Unless if it's like all of a sudden you went 10,000% above, then it's, wait a second, what happened here? Where's this spike at? So being able to see that high level detail and then be able to help break that down really quickly is a huge part of being in that business owner and almost like just the investor perspective. I know you're kind of in those companies still and not just the investor, but still kind of being that person that's up here, the high level. You're just looking at the whole thing and everything and letting them go and communicate down from there and get that information to you, which is such an important thing. And I know we could go into a lot more of that, but I do want to make sure that we get to our last question. And that question is, if you could only share one message for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
Yeah, man, it's to make it count, the name of my book. For me, in September, it's coming up September 17, 2015, my former partner at the fire department, Jordan Howard, he got hit head on coming into work. Anyone from the upstate may remember the story. A guy was running from the cops, crossed over into the other lanes, hit him head on. Jordan was on his motorcycle. I was actually in Louisville, got the call, was super upset. He was a guy that really believed in me at the fire department, pushed me. And so just a couple months after that, I left the fire department. In that moment, man, I made a promise to make every day count. I realized, it's cliche. People say it. You read it in books. You're not promised tomorrow, but it's the truth. Like it really, really is the truth. I'd seen people close to me die, a great grandma, a grandpa, an uncle, but some of those, they were older, and it was expected to lose somebody that close in age and someone that you really looked up to and you loved. It was different. I mean, it just hit me different. And I realized that we're not promised tomorrow, and we do have to make every single day count. And so when we talk about income and we talk about impact and the importance of focusing on that impact piece, man, we mean it. Like you have an opportunity today to work on cementing your legacy. And what do you want your legacy to be? That's everything we talk about at these Revolt retreats. Every time I speak, it boils back down to leadership and legacy and something I called legacy-focused leadership, making decisions today that are going to impact people 100 years from now, not just the result you're going to get today or tomorrow or next month or next year even, but 100 years from now after you're gone. And they might not even know your name, man. Like it might not be, welcome to Traveler's Rest, home of Hunter Ballew, or my name's not going to be on the football stadium or a statue or whatever. Like that's not what it's about. It's about the impact you're going to make. Too many people, they associate legacy with inheritance or money in the bank account or the assets you're going to leave your family. Man, that ain't legacy at all. It's not. It doesn't matter. It's the impact you make on people after you're gone. Because I'm so passionate about that. And I really pound that home. And that's kind of what I want to be remembered for one day, is the guy that really got people on track with what they wanted their legacy to be.
I love it, man. And I can definitely see that every time I've seen you speak and the interactions we've had and everything, that I can definitely tell that you genuinely want to create that impact. And that's what you're all about. And it's awesome that you're already doing that. Obviously, the book's out there. So guys, make sure to check out that book. And Hunter, if people want to follow you and be able to just have conversation with you or just see what's going on as you're posting up all of these new and exciting events, especially the Inferno. Is that what you said it was? Yeah. And where's the best place for them to find that information? Yeah,
man, just Facebook. Facebook works. And I bought a few thousand of my books and have them stored at my office just for when I do podcasts like this. If you guys reach out, and just mention Philip's name or speaking sessions as the podcast. You saw it there. Just had somebody do it today from another podcast I was on a couple of weeks ago. If you reach out and just send me your information, I'll send you a book for free. But Facebook's the best place. Just look me up there.
Awesome. Well, Hunter, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing so much valuable information. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks.